Hema. Get up, we are going to Diagon Alley. If you don't want to go, just forget it, hey? Diagon Alley, I will get up right away, but Hannah, can you go down first? The handsome boy opened his eyes in a daze, and saw a familiar face appeared in front of him. The golden curly hair draped over his nose, making him want to sneeze. But this is my bed, you rolled down from it again. The girl frowned, turned over and pressed directly on his stomach, making him breathless. Hannah. I was wrong. Mom said that she will take us to buy a new bed tomorrow. Let me give you the new bed. Hema also immediately begged for mercy. Well, let me give you the bed you said. Hannah smiled, got out of the bed, and ran out of the bedroom. Looking at the robe on Hannah, Hema was a little embarrassed at the moment. After all, my cheap sister received a letter from Hogwarts last year, but he, the younger brother, did not receive it. But this was also in his expectation. After all, he was not a child of the Abo family, but an adopted orphan. But no matter what, I am also a traversal, rebirth. Anyway, it is a template for the male protagonist, but why didn't I even receive the letter? My owl won't be cut and eaten by some guy? But it doesn't really matter. Although it is a good thing to know magic, Harry Potter is not a fairy tale, but a fantasy story full of dark sides. For example, Hannah's mother, who is now his adoptive mother, Mrs. Abbott, died tragically in the hands of Death Eaters. So for him, he doesn't want to fight with the strange uncle who has no nose, and the wise old man with white beard. It's better not to go to Hogwarts. Harry and the others can solve it, as long as they save the lives of their own family. Before Hema's thoughts fell, there was a muffled click, and Hema was immediately attracted by the sound from the window. I saw a grey-black owl rolling by the window, and the envelope in his mouth was stuffed through the crack of the window. Hema was taken aback for a moment, and then quickly walked over, chanting, "Don't be my admission notice, don't be my admission notice." No, this letter really doesn't seem to be for me. Hannah Abbott accepts it. Let me just say, I was an adopted orphan, or I was adopted from an orphanage in Muggle world. If all orphans have magic talents, that wouldn't be a mess. I still study hard by myself, fight the golden penguin and kick Alima. Hema, why didn't you clean up that letter, Hema? Did you get caught by Hogwarts too? Hannah was also very happy to see what Hema was holding. After all, although the two people often had a little friction, they still admired her little brother. After all, he has been smarter than other children since he was a child. He is very good in learning and sports, and he even knows a lot of knowledge that adults don't know. So even at Hogwarts, she believes Hema will be just as good. But then, Hema waved her hand and pointed to her name on it, making her smile gradually fade. Looked at Hema, who looked like a salted fish, thinking that the other party was sad because he didn't have the talent for magic. Hema, don't be upset, even if you don't have magical powers, you are the best among Muggles. I believe you. Hearing Hannah's encouragement, Hema, who had been Sima's face, couldn't help but smile and stroked the other's head. But found that it seems that Hannah is actually taller than him. It seems that girls are still taller than boys. My okay Hannah, it doesn't really matter to me whether I have magic talent or not. The only thing that matters is that you and your mother can spend every day happily. Well, by the way, let me see what the letter says. Hannah quickly opened the envelope, and her calm face gradually became distorted in Hema's perspective. No good. Hema, an important guest is coming to our house. Headmaster of Hogwarts, Headmaster Dumbledore. I'll go tell Mom first. After finishing speaking, Hannah dropped the envelope and ran out, while Hema stayed where she was, her head hurt. Old Head Deng is coming, see Hannah? Am I a traverser or you a traverser? Hey, it's just that I don't want to meet this wise archmage for the time being. But just half an hour later, when Hema looked at the old man with white beard sitting across from him with a look of lovelessness, She hated her crow's mouth just now. Mr. Hema, don't be too nervous. I am not here as a principal, but an ordinary old man who came here as a guest. Dumbledore looked at him with a smile, grabbed a piece of toffee on the table in his hand, peeled the paper off the paper skillfully, and put it in his mouth. No, Mr. Principal, I'm just surprised why you came here to find me in person. Hema smiled half-truthfully back. Well, I know you have this question, then, Mr. Hema, are you interested in listening to me tell a story? Okay, Mr. Principal. Seeing that Hema was completely settled down, Dumbledore closed his eyes, as if reminiscing about something, and slowly opened his eyes a few seconds later. A long time ago, before the mysterious man, there was a very powerful dark wizard in the magical world. He was also recognized as the first Dark King. And compared to the mysterious people who use brutal rule, more of his subordinates worship him more than fear. So after he was defeated by a powerful wizard, many of his followers died or were arrested. But there are many hidden away, waiting for his return. Of course some believers are rational, while others are blind. So the blind believers did many terrible things in the shadows, and many innocent people died as a result. The most powerful group was the Dragon Wizards. They want to combine the power contained in magical animals with humans to create biological weapons that can destroy everything. But fortunately, the difference between powerful magical animals and humans is too great. All such evil experiments have failed, and they have been eliminated. But as a result of the failure, many innocent people died, and the children who were tested were ruthlessly abandoned. Even if there is no death, the sequelae caused by the failed trial will not allow them to live beyond 10 years of age. But some kind-hearted wizards think that they are all alive, and they should have a chance to live once in this world. So these wizards discussed with others and made a bold decision. The kind-hearted wizards sent the dozen or so children who survived to various families, so that they could grow up healthy and happy under the protection of their parents. UU reading www.uugonshu.com. But the result was still dying, and just when everyone felt that there was no hope, a child gave us hope. He actually passed his 11th birthday, and he is still very healthy, and he is smarter, wiser, and even gifted with magic than children of the same age. This is simply a miracle, and this miracle is you, Hema Abbott. As Dumbledore's words fell, Hema, who was sitting opposite, was completely stunned. Although he had thought about whether this body would be the orphan of a certain mage, he didn't expect it to be more amazing than he thought. And congratulations on your birthday, Hema classmate. As Dumbledore touched him from behind, he pulled a huge box onto the table, which was obviously a big cake. Thank you, Principal Dumbledore. Hema couldn't calm down anymore, stood up very solemnly, and bowed to Dumbledore. You don't need to thank me, but when I arrive at Hogwarts, I hope Hema can satisfy the professors. Speaking, Dumbledore looked at Hema, who was unpacking the cake, and showed an honest smile. Another letter appeared in his hand, and the Hogwarts badge on it was shiny. Hema also hung her hands on the cake. I believe you a ghost, you are a bad old man, so bad. Now that I have short hands and soft mouths, I have to go to Hogwarts. Well, Ms. Abbott, and dear Miss Hannah, don't hide in the corner, come out to eat cakes. Besides cakes, I also brought some sweets that I like very much. As Dumbledore's eyes swept away, at the corner of the stairs, the mother and daughter Abbott, who had been eavesdropping, walked out embarrassedly. Half an hour later, after Dumbledore had helped Hema for a birthday, he left in a hurry and gave him 100 Jinyarons by the way. This actually made Mrs. Abbott a little depressed. Although the family's financial situation is not so good recently, she can still bear the children going to school. Besides, Hema is so good, even if he is in a tight spot, he must have no worries about studying at Hogwarts. But since it was Dumbledore's kindness, she didn't say anything. In fact, compared to the arrival of this principal, Hema's life experience gave her some shock. But for her, no matter who Hema's biological parents are, what pain he has experienced, Hema is her son, this is the same. And Hannah has become a glutton at this time, and one bite of a strawberry is stuffed into her mouth. For her little girl, what she cares more about is that Hema can go to Hogwarts like him. Is there anything more pleasing than that? After clearing the table, Mrs. Abbott officially took the two little wizards onto the ordinary bus and hurried towards the Broken Cauldron bar. Mrs. Abbott was afraid that Hema had no magic talent, so she moved to Muggle a few years ago and received the education here in advance. There is a way for Hema to go, it can be said that it is well-intentioned. Although Hannah has been telling Hema some stories about Harry Potter last semester, the other party has always been like a salted fish. After all, Hema is still in a brainstorm at the moment. He enrolled a year later than Hannah, which means that the Philosopher's Stone is over, and he went to the second secret room. Thinking that he might encounter a basilisk, he has a chill on his back. Although he had anticipated the possibility of himself becoming a wizard, he also knew a lot of magic knowledge in advance, but after all, he was talking on paper. And he hasn't had magical riots since he was a child. He feels that his talent as a wizard may be very good, so be careful. Hema, we are here. The three of them had just entered the Broken Cauldron bar. A rickety bald old man suddenly appeared in front of the three of them. Hannah took a step back in fright, but Hema, who was standing in front, took the initiative to greet him. Are you Tom Boss? Hema asked with her head up. Although the other person is really scary, Tom Boss is not a bad person. Oh. Yes, strange little wizard, what would you like to order? Boss Tom was also shocked. He knew he would often scare the little wizard, but this kid seemed a little different, very polite. Boss Tom, how about we go to Diagon Alley first and come back to patronize your business? Of course. Tom's old face also showed an unsightly smile, apparently very useful to him as you. At this time, Hannah behind her looked surprised at Hema's back, and suddenly felt that her status, whether she was older sister or senior sister, was threatened. This is Hema's first visit to the Broken Cauldron bar, but it's incredible that he is so calm. Hema, do you know how to get to Diagon Alley? Seeing Hannah's expression, Mrs. Abbott cast a look at Hema. Oh, I don't know, then I have to ask Hannah. Of course. Seeing the slightly depressed Miss Hannah suddenly raised her mouth, Hema also shook her head. Miss Hannah really understands her. But compared to the character in the original and the movie, it seems that because of me, Miss Hannah has become a little bit more cheerful. In the story of her previous life, she was an only child. My intervention may have had a big impact on her character. Just as Hema raised her head again, she saw the little girl waving her magic wand, and the door to Diagon Alley was successfully opened by Hannah. As the entrance of the cave became bigger and bigger, a wide archway appeared in front of them soon. A winding cobblestone street with no end in sight appeared in front of the three people. Wow! Hannah yelled out in a low voice. Although she had been to Diagon Alley several times last year, this time Digiao Alley was more lively than last time. In addition to all kinds of stores, there seemed to be a lot more stalls on the roadside. This time period is the time when the little wizards come to shop the most. Looking at the novel people and things, Hema's always poker face also showed a smile, and the dead fish eyes also showed a hint of light. Let's go, there are a lot of things we need to buy today. Mrs. Abo officially entered Diagon Alley with the two little wizards. The two of them looked around. The place where the flow of people or the little wizards was most concentrated was the Quidditch shop. But Hema is really not interested in Quidditch. It's not that he doesn't like the feeling of flying, but the sport is really meaningless. After all, he is a person who has experienced modern life, although in modern life, he is also a deadhouse who does not like sports. Mrs. Abo first took the two children to buy some sundries, crucibles, small medicine bottles and other things, and then came to the door of Mrs. Morkan's clothing store. Hema also suddenly remembered that although he hadn't seen many originals, he appeared in Mrs. Morkan's robe shop for the first time in the originals. also brought out the meeting of two destined men, Harry and Draco, who can be good friends, but work hard from start to finish. And he didn't keep up in a swaying god. The two of him and Hannah had been separated by the crowd. Hema waved his hand and motioned to buy a magic wand first. Be careful, Hannah and I are here waiting for you. Mrs. Abbott also nodded, and then led Hannah into the clothing store. Hema left the two of them and shuttled in the crowd. Although he didn't know which direction Ollivander's shop was in, what did he do with the long mouth? He changed to ask as he walked, but after a while, he got lost. Is that guy trying to fix me on purpose? That kid, better not let me see you, ah. Just as Hema turned around unhappy, a figure directly hit him, he staggered suddenly and almost fell to the ground. Sorry, first, classmate, hello, are you from Hogwarts? Can you take me out of here? Hema only saw the other person's appearance at this time, wearing a pair of round frame glasses, regardless of the broken half of the glasses at this time. Although his head is grey, his emerald-like eyes are shining. Harry Potter. Hema stretched out her hand questioningly, but the identity of the other party had been confirmed, and the scar was too conspicuous. Yes, hello, what is your name? Hema Abbott. You should know my sister, Hannah Abbott. Harry was awakened by Hemera, but when he heard that the other party's sister was Hannah, he suddenly froze, as if the reinforcements were a bit weak. Watching the wizards in black robes around him getting closer and closer, Harry suddenly felt a palpitation, which was more terrifying than facing Voldemort. Hema student, let's go. Harry plucked up the courage to drag the schoolboy he had just met towards the entrance of the far alley, but an elderly witch blocked their way. She gave a weird smile, and stretched her hand trembling towards the two of them, and when Harry was a little overwhelmed, a slender dagger was placed directly on her wrist. If you dare to move again, your wrist will be cut by me. Or say, A. V.A. D.A. As Hema's cold tone fell fiercely, a bloodstain clearly appeared on her wrist, and a little bit of scarlet slipped down her wrist. What? The witch found a touch of green flashing on Hema's cuff, screamed, and quickly withdrew her wrist. Yu reading www.yuyugonshu.com ran toward the depths of the alley without looking back. While the other wizards looked at the little figure withdrawing the knife, a smile appeared at the corner of their mouth, which made them dare not approach any more. After all, even in Knockout Alley, few people dare to shout that spell directly at people in the daytime. This guy is a complete freak. Although Harry saw the witch being pushed back, he couldn't help but stepped back a few steps next to Hema, a little further away from Hema. After all, he took out the knife and cut the opponent's hand directly, and then he was chanting some spell. This spell gave him a very bad hunch from the very beginning. Compared to Harry's mood, Hema was actually panicked. In fact, he just used his poker face to play with the other party. If the protagonists of the novel are all pretending to be pigs and eating tigers, he is probably pretending to be tigers and eating pigs. Fortunately, when I went out, I brought this small flashlight that can emit several colors of light. Otherwise, it would be a little hard to scare these people away with this watermelon knife. It's okay, Harry, let's go. Hey? Go, oh, I see. Harry saw Hema, who had been murderous just now, regained her original expressionless poker face. Also made him a little confused. Besides, this Abo classmate and that Abo classmate are too different. But you have to say that he is the same person as the group of Slytherins, and it is not the same. The other party is very kind and protected him. He still understands that. At this moment, Hema stretched out one arm around his wrist and walked forward slowly. The warmth dissipated most of his fear and anxiety. Harry Potter smiled, this guy is a good guy. Although the two of them were safer, the two foolish men still didn't find the right way, but a few minutes later, a tall figure swayed from the other side. Harry! Why are you here? Hagrid, I'm lost, where is this place? Turn down alley, my boy, This place is very dangerous for you little wizards, this one. Hagrid talked to Harry for a long time before he noticed the black-haired boy next to him, who was silent but looked at him tenderly, making him a little flattered. Although he knew that not every little wizard was afraid of him, he was very happy that the little wizard who saw him for the first time treated him so kindly. Hagrid, he is Hema Abo, a freshman enrolled this year. Oh, hello Hema. But we are leaving here immediately. Hagrid patted Hema on the shoulder, leading a child with one hand, and walked towards Diagon Alley. Lu Haig and Harry had a lot of stories about his summer vacation, but Hema silently thought about other things. Should he go and take away the book Mr. Malfoy put in Ginny's for a while, or should he follow the plot as much as possible? Hema, are you uncomfortable? I know that the wizards in Knockdown Alley are very dangerous. I have a small piece of chocolate here. Hagrid looked at Hema who was silent on the way, took out half of a chocolate from his pocket and handed it to him. Harry next looked at Hema, who was obediently picking up the chocolate. For the first time, he felt what acting was called. What kind of aura did you have just now? Harry. Hagrid. And at this moment, a girl's voice suddenly sounded from not far away, and Hema followed the fame, and a familiar but different figure ran over here. Hermione. Nice to meet you. Harry also stepped forward excitedly. At this moment he felt the importance of partners again. Harry, your glasses are, Oculus Reparo. And Hagrid, hello, this, is. After Hermione helped Harry fix his glasses, she greeted Hagrid, and finally saw Herma standing by. Hello, classmate Hermione, Hema Abbott. Hema also stretched out her small hand very calmly, and looked at each other with a smile. And after Hermione heard Hema's name, she looked at him carefully, as if thinking of something. Hermione. Harry watched Hermione go away. Herma's hand was still awkwardly hanging in the air, touching her shoulder slightly. Oh. Sorry, classmate Hema, Hermione Granger. Hema didn't care, and shook Hermione's hand lightly, but when she was about to let it go, Hermione was pulled directly next to her. Miss Granger. It's really you, it's incredible to be able to meet you here. Hearing Hermione's words, Hema was a little surprised. He was sure he had never seen Hermione. After all, he had seen Miss Watson's in reality before he was reborn. But the real Hermione in front of me at this moment, although 6 or 7 points similar to Emma, but there are many differences, and can be distinguished from the movie. Have you seen me before? Of course not, but I saw you in the newspapers. I graduated from Granier Elementary School at the age of 9 and was admitted to the Genius of Hawkwall Middle School. I missed the entrance by exactly 7 points. Seeing the combative gaze in Hermione's eyes, Hema finally understood Miss Hermione's surprising reaction, and she has to say that the schoolmasters are really attractive and hostile to each other. However, I hope that at Hogwarts, Mr. Abbott will continue to maintain good grades. Of course, as a senior, you can ask me if you don't understand. Hermione said finally. She showed a sweet smile, which made Herma's heart move too. My goodness, where's the black Hermione? I can't stand it anymore. Of course, I heard my sister say that your grades are very good, Miss Granger. Elder sister. Hermione, Herma's sister is Hannah. They are really different. I think he will be a Gryffindor. Harry looked at Hema, thinking that Hema had rescued him bravely just now and chased away the wizards. Such little wizards will definitely enter Gryffindor. Well, I hope so. Hermione glanced at the calm Hema, and let go of the hand she had been holding. In fact, she understood a lot in the past today. After all, I was studying very hard at the time, but I still didn't get admitted to Hawkwall Middle School, and then I saw the newspaper where Hema was located. Although I received a letter from Hogwarts the next day, I will be a wizard in the future, and I will take a different path from that guy, but even so, I have always been a little bit worried about it. Is not envious or jealous, or simply feels that I can't compare to the other party, and I want a chance to prove myself. But now the other party is enrolled as a freshman, no matter which college they enter, they still have a lot of opportunities for them to compete in the future. This time, Hermione Granger will not lose. At this time, Mr. Hema didn't think so much, but felt that Hermione suddenly ignited a fighting spirit and was still against him, which made him also feel some pressure. After all, he has not said that he has clearly felt the existence of magic since he was a child, and there is no sign of magic riots. Maybe he might really be rubbed by the excellent Hermione classmates on the ground. After all, Harry Potter is in the late stage, and classmate Hermione is really one with two holes. It is a MVP level. Without Hermione, Harry and Ron would have to die more than a dozen times to pass the level. UU reading www.uugonshu.com. At this moment, the Weasley family hurriedly walked over, and the chubby Mrs. Molly, who was walking in the front, hugged Harry. "Harry, we are so worried about you, are you okay?" Mrs. Molly slapped the dust on Harry, even though she was also a Ash. "It's okay, Hema and Hagrid helped me." Harry nodded and let Mrs. Molly slap himself. In fact, he had been at the Weasley house for a while, and he really realized what the warmth of the family is. Hema. Mr. Weasley and Molly also looked over, only to find that Hermione and Hema, who were standing next to Hagrid just now, were no longer present. "Hagrid, where did they go?" "It seems to have gone to Ollivander. Hema doesn't have a wand yet." "Then, Harry, I have something to do. Let's go first, and see Mr. Weasley and Mrs. Weasley." "Hey!" Watching Hagrid's tall body gradually drown in the crowd, Harry couldn't help clenching his fist when he recalled the scene where Hema confronted the witch. He really couldn't use magic. He protected me without a magic wand. I actually felt jealous of him at the time. "Hema, you are a brave wizard." And Hema didn't know that his own opinion had risen again from Lord Savior at this time. He was walking with Hermione on the way to Ollivander's wand shop at this time. After all, it was only just now that he remembered that his most important thing had not been done yet, but after 2 steps, he turned around and pulled Miss Nawatal over. After all, he found that he might be really crazy about the road. Granger was not upset about it, but was very enthusiastic to lead the way, although Hema guessed some reasons. "Here we are, classmate Hema." Looking at the small facade and the faded golden sign, Hema also remembered that Ollivander was the biggest wand sales owner in the UK. The net worth is definitely not low, why not redecorate the shop? But compared to this, if you choose the magic wand when you come up, do you lose the face of the traversing, rebirth senior? "Excuse me." Before Hema could speak, Miss Hermione had opened the door and walked in. Hema stopped thinking about it and followed Hermione to the small shop. After entering the store, the scene is not so the same as when he was watching the movie. Because from his gaze, tens of thousands of small black boxes were placed along the cabinet from the ground to the ceiling. And in the middle is a very ordinary small table, a dilapidated bench and 2 benches. But this kind of shock is not a dazzling array, but it is better than a dazzling array of shocks. Only by personal experience can you experience it. "Good afternoon, 2 little wizards, which one will come first?" "Girls first." An old man suddenly appeared behind the counter and slowly walked over. A pair of eyes were different from the old appearance, and he looked at the 2 with shining light. "Mr. Ollivander, I bought a magic wand last year, this is the new visitor." Seeing Hermione drew out his wand, Ollivander couldn't help but close his hand in embarrassment, then pulled a tape measure from the side and walked towards Hema. "Little wizard, which hand are you good at?" "Right hand." "Raise your arms." "Also, Miss Granger, 10 3/4, grapevine wood, dragon nerves, right." Seeing Hermione nodded, Hema almost laughed out. After all, Ollivander really recognized people by the wand. Although this is very powerful, it is a bit strange to think that when I see some people, I read the magic wand information and then recognize the person. But Miss Granger, there seems to be something wrong with your wand. Yes, Mr. Ollivander, I had some accidents last year and accidentally broke my wand. Strong impact or squeeze? Just put it on the table, I'll take care of it. Ollivander glanced at Hermione's wand, nodded, and Hema finished measuring. Ollivander walked back to get the wand. Hema also sat next to Hermione and asked, "What's the matter with your wand?" "It was caused by a troll." "Well, Ron accidentally got stuck in the toilet by a troll last year. Harry and I went to rescue him. Although there were some problems in the process, it was fortunate that we were all fine." Hearing this, Hema frowned and realized that something was a bit wrong. Although he had forgotten a lot of the details of Harry Potter, there is absolutely nothing in this paragraph. Because Hermione was trapped in the toilet and Harry and Ron went to save her. It was an important note in the development of friendship and the promotion of the plot. The movie is also a perfect restoration here. But why was Ron trapped? I was even studying in London at the time. Was the butterfly effect so strong? It is incredible. But Hema also made a decision about this, giving up the idea of taking the book now, not to mention whether he can withstand the erosion of Voldemort's Horcrux. Just because of the massive changes in the plot, it is difficult for him to arrange the following things. Since he has come to the magical world, he has to ensure that he survives and grows smoothly. At least he must have the ability to protect Mrs. Abbott and Hannah, so he has to put in more effort than on the Muggle side. After all, he is among ordinary people, it is easier to get good grades. After all, it is the brain of an adult, and he has learned a lot of things in his previous life. But magic is different, not to mention his talent. Even if it is not bad, before Voldemort is resurrected, he probably won't be much stronger. By the way, is the system there? Hema said teasingly. Are you looking for me? Who? Hema exclaimed, and Hermione next to her was also surprised and turned her head to look at Hema. What's wrong with classmate Abbott? Are you uncomfortable? It's okay, no problem. Hema frowned slightly, and said in his heart, System? Is it there? Is it just my illusion just now? Ha ha ha. And just when Hema thought he had heard it wrong, a series of crisp and sweet laughter rang from his mind. A group of silver light spots gradually burst out from in front of him, and then slowly gathered together, and finally a beautiful girl in a long robe appeared in front of him. Hema noticed that Hermione was holding the book while looking for something, while Ollivander crawled up and down from the shelf on his own, as if he hadn't noticed the vision here. In other words, can only he see it, so he held his mind again and said, You are not a system, you have the Slytherin logo printed on your robe. Oh, are you smart? Junior, what do you mean, are you a ghost or? My name is Xiao Wenna. Actually, I am also a rebirth just like you, but the time I came was not coincidentally, just in time for the days when Voldemort was raging. Even if I have the system, I haven't grown up yet. After all, the Harry Potter world is only easy to survive if it develops in the main line. Anyway, a lot of things happened in the middle, and in the end I died in Voldemort's hands, but in the end the system protected me. At this point, the other party's tone faded a bit, but then he smiled cheerfully. It was the first time Hema saw such an optimistic person. It uses the remaining reincarnation energy to retain my soul consciousness, but even the soul I do not belong to this world. So I have been wandering until you appear. Hema also suddenly remembered something at this time. When he came into this world and entered this body, he encountered obstacles. After all, there was already a soul in it. But a light and shadow like a goddess helped him, expelled the soul, and finally retained his consciousness. You were at that time, how did you do it? Hema looked at her in surprise, you reading www. After all, UUGonshu.com can't do this with soul consciousness. The consciousness of the system completely dissipated in order to protect me, and it is considered to have died instead of me, so the nature of the remaining system is bound to me. But I am not the original system, and most of the system functions have been destroyed, so I am not the system itself. But at that time, you were a foreign soul and existed just like me. So I made that decision because the system can only be attached to a soul in another world. Hearing this, Hema can completely understand the ins and outs, but the other party seems to have some systematic abilities, maybe it can help herself. That, Sister Xiao, what system is this? Oh. I know how to call my sister. This system is nothing special, it is the League of Legends achievement system. You can get rewards such as gold coins through tasks and achievements, and then gain some heroic power. Then can I use it? Although the system started to recover slowly after attaching to you, I want to take over completely. It will take a long time to reach the level of publishing tasks. Ah, forget it, let me work my own, little brother. Alas! Wait a minute, kid, have you misunderstood something? I'm not just the spokesperson of the system, I'm also a grandpa. What will you do? What can I do? This lady is a top student in Slytherin, what can not be? Then why are you still defeated by Voldemort? It's the old iron. And just when Hema was about to keep some words from the other party, Ollivander had already walked over with 3 boxes. Little wizard, your arms are very special, longer than children of the same age. According to the future growth situation, I specially found these 3 arms. Aspen, 12 inches, unicorn tail hair. Unicorn tail hair can release magic most stably, suitable for most wizards. Hema took the wand, and a faint warmth squirted out from his fingertips, and finally condensed on the wand, golden light shining in all directions. Hema looked at the golden light with a brilliant look in his eyes. After all, this was the first time he felt magic power in his body after he came into this world. But before he got used to this feeling and looked for the flow of magic in his body, Ollivander suddenly pulled back the wand in his hand. Good, very suitable, but I think it is not enough. Hema didn't understand what Ollivander meant, but looked at each other in confusion. After all, Ollivander had said that the wand was choosing the master, not the wizard. In the situation just now, it was obvious that the wand had agreed to be its owner, but Mr. Ollivander took the one back. Then, Ollivander took out the remaining 2, one is phoenix feathers and walnut wood, and the other is dragon nerves and grapevine wood. The final result was almost the same as the first one, with golden light coming out, and the last one even bursting out a colorful light, which is a wand that can be used for Hema. Mr. Ollivander, didn't you say that the wand chooses the owner, not the wizard who chooses the wand? Yes, dear little wizard, what is your name? Ollivander then remembered to ask Hema's name. Hema Abo. You are Hema Abbott. Ollivander's eyes widened suddenly, then stared at Hema's eyes, and slowly fell silent. Sure enough. Since it's you, there is nothing wrong, wait a moment. Ollivander walked into the depths again thoughtfully. And Hema looked at Ollivander's back in a puzzled way. It seemed a little different from what he had imagined. It was not difficult to choose, but it was actually too good to choose. Do you know why? Dear senior sister Xiao. Maybe because of your body. Ah, is there anything to say about my body? You didn't listen to old Deng's talk that day, I heard it all in my deep sleep, saying that you are the product of a magic experiment. Although you survived because of changes in your soul, of course, your body may also be considered a successful case. Is there any change in my body? I don't feel anything at this point, but if it is really because of this, then it makes sense. Hema could only explain this, and Hermione didn't know when she stood behind Hema. After all, it took Harry a long time to choose the wand, she knew it, so Hema was really curious about this situation. Of course, in a sense, it was also collecting information about competitors in advance. Hema's highly adaptive response to the wand still made her feel a little pressure. After half a minute, with a muffled noise at the back of the shop, Mr. Ollivander came over with a long box, and finally put it on the table with a snap. Seeing the dust on the table suddenly shook and drifted away, Hermione stretched out her right hand and lifted it, only to find that she hadn't moved it. "What is this?" Hema also gave a wry smile and stretched out both hands before grabbing it. "It's almost a meter. This is really a magic wand." "Mr. Ollivander, are you sure this is a magic wand?" I didn't make this magic wand. It was discovered by my father and a good friend of some magical ruins. After my inspection, it was 39 inches, made of ashwood and snake nerves. It is a very ordinary or inferior product, but my father said that this wand is full of powerful power. Although this is the case, no wizard has ever been able to activate this wand. It is not that it is not used smoothly, but that it cannot be used. But Mr. Hema, maybe you." As he said, Ollivander's eyes looked at Hema expectantly, and slowly opened the box of the wand. A scepter with a dark black body with golden symbols engraved on the body and a dull blue crystal on the top of the stick appeared in front of several people. "It's a beautiful scepter, but it seems to be a scepter, not a magic wand." Hermione also involuntarily stretched out her small hand and touched the wand. But the next second, Hermione only felt a pain in her finger, and quickly retracted it. "This magic wand is so strange." "Hema classmate, be careful, this wand seems to attack people." "School brother, be careful, besides the threat to the physical body, this thing seems to threaten the spiritual body." Hearing what Hermione and senior sister Xiao said, Hema also nodded, but looking at this scepter, at this moment he was full of a desire to uniform. "Bring it on." Hema grabbed his wand with both hands and lifted the wand. He took the whole wand in his hand instantly, and a scorching sensation instantly surged from the wand, as if he had touched a red soldering iron. UU reading www.youkansha.com. Ah! Hema then let out a low growl, but as the pain in her hands rolled up, the dim blue crystal also bloomed with brilliant brilliance. Roar! A few seconds later, Hema heard a shocking roar from the void, and the burning sensation in her hands dissipated a lot. A faint energy rushed from his body to the wand. He had already been familiar with this energy just now. It was his magical power. And as the scepter stabilized at this time, he could feel the magic power in his body that had been like a quagmire flowing quickly and becoming active. "Very good boy, this magic wand belongs to you. I can feel the power emanating from this magic wand, and I believe you will definitely make a difference in the future." Ollivander also showed a smile, and took out a pocket watch from his arms, which contained the official photos of his father and grandfather. "However, classmate Hema, but with such a big wand, adults can't carry it all day long. It's too inconvenient. This can actually be solved by some spells, such as infinite extension spells, but it is really not convenient for casting spells." Hearing Ollivander said this, Hema looked at the few wands she had tried just now, and when she had an idea, one won't work, then two. "Mr. Ollivander, you said it was the magic wand who chose the master. Since they all agree, then I can just buy another magic wand." Ollivander was also taken aback, remembering that a wizard had actually told him about this in the past, but he finally refused. The reason was naturally the adaptability of the wand. A handy wand is much better than 10 disobedient wands, but this kid is different, and his adaptability is too high. Maybe an exception can be made. Ron. I seem to want to see Hermione and Hema just now. Harry sat in the co-pilot and looked at the direction of the station. Really? You may have misunderstood it, even if it is, the hidden magic of the car is no longer valid, basically, and I also. Ron's entire face blushed. He had to control the car to move forward steadily, which was the limit, and he would surely be discovered when he returned. Then let's go first, there should be no problem with those two people. Harry thought of the smart and talented Hermione, and the brave and wise to amazing Herma, this combination is better than the duo combination of him and Ron. At this time, the Herma and Hermione duo were not as comfortable as they thought, because they had put down their luggage just now, and they didn't have any money on them, whether it was gallon or British pounds. Do you want us to walk to Hogwarts? Hema looked at the sky, feeling a little weak for the first time. Do we have to fly over, or else go home first and inform Principal Dumbledore? Hermione's head is not enough at this time. Although smart, Hermione is no more than a 12-year-old seedling now. But when Hermione said to fly over, Hema suddenly had some inspiration, and a sneer-like smile appeared on her expressionless face. What's wrong? You laughed strangely. No one told you. Hermione pressed Hema's face lightly, feeling her mood lightened a lot. Don't make trouble, you were right Hermione just now, we can fly over. In Hermione's incredulous gaze, Hema nodded. Sister Xiao, come out to work. Harry and Ron had been chasing after more than a child, and finally saw a figure that was winding forward like a giant red snake. Ron! I saw the Hogwarts train. Really? That's great, we are going to lean in, don't lose it. Okay. Ron roared and stepped on the accelerator in excitement, but with the roar of the engine, the body shook suddenly. Ron suddenly felt a bit of a nuisance, the body was a little out of control, and he started drifting in the air. Harry, be careful! Harry's car door was knocked open. Under the agitation of the air current, Harry's thin figure was directly thrown out. Harry! Ron saw that the co-pilot was empty, completely stunned, and the body slowly recovered stability, but Ron kicked the car. He immediately put down the steering wheel and looked down, only a small black shadow caught his eyes, he was too late. And just when Ron was about to collapse, a golden light and shadow cut through the clouds above his head, pierced the air like an arrow, and shot straight in the direction of Harry. In Harry's blurred vision, a golden light drew closer and closer, as if heaven was calling him. But as he got closer, two familiar faces appeared before his eyes, and Hermione's voice rang in his ears. Harry, take my hand. Do you really want to play family with God? Our Savior. Hermione and Herma. Harry opened his eyes wide, looked at Hermione's hand stretched over, and grasped it firmly. Harry is saved. Oh my God! By the way, the car. Ron saw that and Jin Guang rescued Harry, he was also relieved, looked at the car that was already driving in a frantic manner, and sat back in his seat. And Harry was constantly adjusting his breathing at this time, only then did he notice that he was floating in the air, and Hermione was standing next to him. Looking back, Harry was also stunned. He was surprised to find a pair of white wings shining with golden glow behind Hema flapping with the wind, like angels. The reason why he and Hermione can fly without using magic and only need Herma to touch them is because of the power brought by the pair of glowing wings. In fact, Hema took a deep breath when he looked at Harry, who was alive after the catastrophe. Harry, the protagonist, almost died in this place. Regardless of whether it is directly caused by oneself, but the result is so, it also has its own certain reasons, after all, only oneself is the butterfly. How did you do it? Seeing Hema flying up with Harry and Hermione, Ron's eyes flashed, looking at the pair of wings, this is much more handsome than a broom. Special magic items can only be used once, the next time it may take a few years before they can be recharged, the sun is recharged. Hey, really? I originally felt that if it was a spell, I would study hard this time. Ron continued to hold the steering wheel with a bitter expression. Hema lied about this wing, not because Hema was stingy, but because the wings could not be borrowed at all. Thanks to the help of senior sister Xiao, Grandpa, although she can't take over the system completely, some functions are still available. So she temporarily took her own mission to gain heroic power, then released the mission, and sent it to Hema in the form of reward. UU reading www.uuganshu.com to use. This pair of wings is the wings of Kyle, the angel of justice in League of Legends, but the achievement rate of the elder sister to complete the task was not high at that time, so it was not permanent. Is a skill system, each time it can be used is limited, flying for 40 minutes, and then cooling for 24 hours. Not right. If it's 40 minutes, isn't it almost time? Hema glanced at her feet and sweated. Harry, Hermione, we will be back in the car soon. My magic item is running out of energy. What? The three of them exclaimed, and immediately opened the door and drilled into the car, but as Hema entered the last one, the pair of wings broke apart in an instant, and the golden glow dissipated completely with the airflow. At this time, many little wizards on the Hogwarts Express noticed the abnormal movement outside, but they didn't care too much when they saw the golden light disappeared. But in the crowd, a handsome, blonde boy was leaning against the window, squinting his eyes to the spot where Hema flew down. I'm absolutely not mistaken, that guy is the guy I saw in Knockdown Alley, and Harry. Bo. Special. Malfoy? Motion sickness. It's okay. Draco replied coldly, then clenched his fists. My father said he wanted me to have a good relationship with that guy, but I don't even know his name, but Slytherin does need such a powerful partner. Malfoy thought at the end, smiled, and once again the same smiling face that he could still show even if he was surrounded by a group of adult wizards. He admitted that he wanted to be that kind of wizard, and with that green light, he would definitely come to Slytherin. His father's judgment would not be wrong. Classmate Abbott, Hermione, there are toffee in the back seat. Ron was excited again when he saw Harry's aftermath, but after seeing Hermione's extremely cold face, he closed himself up. He knew it was his own cause, and it almost caused Harry to fall to death, but there was no way he could drive there. Hermione, don't blame Ron, I was not careful and didn't wear a seat belt. Harry also relieved the embarrassment between the two. Hema was leaning on the back seat uninterestedly, feeling a wave of weakness. After all, the cold was just getting better. But after blowing in the air for a long time, he really couldn't stand it. I hope Madame Pomfrey can heal him completely when he arrives at Hogwarts. Hermione felt her shoulders sink, and a handsome face suddenly appeared in front of her. She was taken aback for a moment, and then calmed down. Hema has a fever and is a little uncomfortable. Let him take a break, let's not disturb him either. Harry poked his head out, saw Herma who was pale and bloodless, and nodded, but Ron looked through the rear-view mirror and saw Hermione and Herma stuck together. Suddenly became a little unhappy. Hermione stopped preaching. It should be considered a good thing. Why did she feel so upset? The four people flew from morning to night in a speeding car. Although Ron was already a little tired during the period, he was the only one who could drive after all, so he could only hold on to it forcibly. Ron, are we almost there? Harry yawned and asked with a confused expression. It should not be far away. The train seems to have started to slow down just now. Ron patted the steering wheel, feeling that the car always seemed to be unstable. Perhaps it was his illusion? Then let's go down and take a look. The cloud blocked the situation below. Okay. Ron stepped on the accelerator again and dived down. When they flew down the clouds, everything was so shadowy when the night had spread, and Harry opened his eyes wide and looked around. But as Harry's gaze became more and more careful, he only felt that the front was getting darker and darker. When he suddenly looked up, a familiar building appeared in front of him. Ron, be careful! Harry shouted loudly. They were only a dozen meters away from the wall in front of them. Turn! Turn! Ron stepped on the brakes, spinning the steering wheel frantically, and Hema and Hermione in their sleep were thrown directly onto the glass. What happened? No! 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 Ron yelled, turning the steering wheel desperately, and at the last second, the car traversed a beautiful arc, avoiding the solid wall. The car's engine started to hum, and the car seemed to have some ideas of its own. It swayed in the air, turning in a 360-degree circle. Hema and others had to hold on to the two armrests of the seat to prevent being thrown out of the car. Hema, what should I do? Harry shouted at Hema. Compared to the others, Harry believed Hema who had rescued him like a knight last time, even though the opponent was still confused now. Fortunately, it hasn't hit Renlu yet, but what should I do? Why don't you just jump down? Please, my god, stabilize it. Ron pleaded quietly. With the last muffled sound of the engine, and then a low tail gas hum, the engine stopped working completely. Oh! It's over. Ron said, his eyes dull and silent. The car fell down, they were falling continuously, and the speed was getting faster and faster, and they hit the hard ground straight. Hema, is there a shock absorption curse? Hermione suddenly had a clever idea, and thought of a way that seemed to make them land safely. Because of the existence of the shock absorption curse, they could just jump straight down. Oh, do you think I should be a freshman? But I have a new way, trust me, everyone jump. Hema heard of Hermione's way and thought of a way, but it was too late to explain. Get out of the car. Hema opened the door of the car and jumped straight down. Hermione hesitated for a second and followed. Harry and Ron were too late to react and watched the two men leap in faith. They also opened the door of the car and immediately followed them. A few people are still 3 or 4 meters away from the ground, and they are about to grab the ground with their faces. Hema's voice suddenly rang in the ears of the 3 people. Yugadam Leviosa! A ray of light flashed out of midair, and the 4 people suddenly felt that their bodies were pulled in midair by a force, and they were only less than half a meter away from the ground. Hey! I'm going to lift the curse. Hema watched Harry and the others straighten their bodies slightly, and several of them fell straight down, just lying on the ground. Harry, we are saved. Well, Ron. By the way, let's go to the auditorium quickly, or we will be finished. Well. Where's your luggage? Hema looked at the car overhead and looked at Harry and Ron. This. But before the 2 people could say anything, the car immediately stabilized in the air, then opened the trunk and threw out their luggage piece by piece like trash. Then the trunk of the small broken car gasped with a flame, and it fell down with a muffled bang of smoke, just in front of a few people. Then, in the shock of several people, they stumbled into the darkness, all 4 lights were turned on, and they disappeared into the night. Come back! Stinky guy! Ron yelled at it, it's over, my dad must kill me. Forget it, we'd better go to the auditorium as soon as possible. If we let the professors know that we are driving, and then we are late, we will definitely be deducted points. Harry said, and saw Ron and Hermione's expressions on the opposite side of him suddenly changed. It was Hema or the expression that didn't matter at all. How? Dear Mr. Potter, thank you for confessing your crime. Come with me. Harry listened to this familiar and terrified voice, slowly twisting his body, a pair of sharp eyes staring at him like needles. Also, there are you guys. Snape kept staring at Harry. You read www.yuyuganshu.com but stretched out his finger, pointed at the Hema 3 people next to him, turned around and walked straight to the castle. The 4 of them looked at Snape's back in the wind blowing like a black bat. For the first time, Hermione felt that the bad boy seemed to be really uncomfortable. Don't worry, we are just victims. Principal Dumbledore will understand this. Hema comforted the 3 little ones. After all, in the original story, Dumbledore didn't punish them either, he just deducted points, and finally blew the black whistle to add them back. This time, the few of them didn't even destroy the willow. Perhaps Snape would be kinder, even if he was not kind, wouldn't there be old Deng? Let's go. Student Abo, come with me first. Just when a few people were about to follow, a tall and thin green-robed witch came over and stood beside Hema with a cold face. Professor McGonagall. Good evening. The 3 Harry still respected the dean of their academy and bowed quickly, but the other party still looked at them seriously. Professor Snape asked us to go to him. I know the reason, and Dumbledore will explain it to Severus himself. I now need to bring classmate Abbott to the sorting ceremony, and then I will decide on his deduction." After finishing speaking, Professor McGonagall nodded at Hema and walked towards the hall. "Then guys, I'll slip away first, maybe see you tomorrow." After speaking, he followed Professor McGonagall. And Harry and the others felt a bit of a nuisance, because Professor McGonagall mentioned the deduction, which means, the three of them. If Hema comes to Gryffindor again, I am afraid that the deduction will directly cause Gryffindor to completely lose the competition for the Academy Cup, and the three will be completely silent. Along the way, Hema and Professor McGonagall did not communicate much. After all, he was not a person who loves to chat. Besides, although Professor McGonagall is essentially a person with cold outside and hot inside, his serious appearance at this time still makes people feel a little pressure. "It's about to start sorting now. Fortunately, you just came here, Mr. Abbott." Professor McGonagall came in from the side door and saw that all the students had been lined up, ready for the sorting hat trial. And Dumbledore, who was sitting in the center, saw him, and smiled slightly on his side. Hema also nodded and bowed, not to mention whether Old Deng would let him enter the plan to eliminate Voldemort in the future. When Dumbledore saved the baby, he found him a good family and congratulated him on his birthday, which was actually very good to him. "Go ahead, stand in front, Mr. Abbott, you may be the first to be called out, after all, your sister was the first one last year." "I see, Professor." Hema nodded, and suddenly thought that his cheap sister is the strongest nail in all Harry Potter books, and the iron-fought Hannah really deserves her reputation. Hema then walked towards the center of the auditorium, and the other little wizards all turned sideways and looked at Hema, which made him get goosebumps. "Hannah, this is your brother." "Yeah." Hannah looked at Hema, and she was also relieved. After all, she didn't see him on the train and frightened her. "Why didn't Ron and Harry come?" Neville looked at Hema, and asked Fred and George next to him. "Yeah, Fred, where did Ron and Harry go? I didn't see them all the way. Maybe it was swept away by Snape's robe." George made a joke, but he didn't expect what he was saying, and then he chatted with Fred about prank props and the like. Neville and Seamus next to him glanced at Gemini speechlessly. Ron picked it up, right, but why is Hermione missing? At the Slytherin table not far away, Malfoy took out a book and looked at it pretentiously, looking sideways at Hema. "Draco, this year's students all look so average, the basic way is to compare with ours." A sharp voice remembered from next to Malfoy, a hand unscrupulously put a hand on his robe, making him startled, then frowned and knocked the opponent's hand down. "Pansy, don't touch me, all right, I have business to do." Hearing Malfoy's arrogant and cold voice, Pansy's anger that had just risen turned into a mass of warmth, and looked at Malfoy as he admired again. Malfoy sighed and said nothing, put down the book, and continued to look in Hema's direction. "Then the Hogwarts sorting ceremony begins now. Whoever I call now will put on a hat, sit on a stool, and wait for the sorting house." With Professor McGonagall standing in the center, the branch officially began. Dirk Avery. Hema was also taken aback when he heard this name. "Rub, he is also a member of the Abo family, why treat it differently?" Under the gaze of everyone, a skinny boy with a bronze skin sat on a stool and put the shabby wizard hat on his head. After a moment's pause, the hat trembles suddenly and shouts Ravenclaw. Then Ravenclaw applauded and cheered, but compared to last year's Harry Potter, the enthusiastic cheers, I am afraid it is not only now, and there will be no more in the future. Next, Hema Abbott. Hearing her name, Hema also slowly stepped onto the stage, put on her hat, and was about to put on a stool, but found that something was blocking her. "Mr. Abbott, you can put down the broom on your back first." At this time, Professor McGonagall's voice sounded from behind him, and Hema remembered that she was still carrying her big wand, although it was wrapped like a broom. "Oh, sorry, Professor McGonagall." Hema didn't explain this wand, which was mistaken for a broomstick, and gently removed it from the back strap and put it out. All the students noticed Hema's movements, and some almost laughed. "What is this guy doing?" asked the professor to hold it for him. And just in the next second, when everyone watched the wood bumps fall to the ground, Hema's fingers flashed with a faint light, and the scepter rose to the ground, floating beside it. After all the little wizards saw this scene, their eyes widened and looked at Hema inconceivably. The senior students gradually turned from smiling faces to shock. Wandless cast spells and silent spells. Silent spell casting that doesn't start until the 6th grade. Even the 7th graders they have, if they don't practice often, they can control so-so. But this newborn silent curse is actually more proficient than theirs. Although it is only a small floating curse, he still managed to cast it without a wand at the same time. My goodness, this guy must come to his academy, this is a genius. Absolute genius. The students with excellent academic performance are more direct than Harry Potter. Take Hermione, for example, although some people don't like her, they have to admit that they are excellent. Suddenly, the prefects of all grades all stared at Hema, who was like the most precious treasure, and even the professor sitting at the head clapped his hands involuntarily. Especially Professor Flitwick, who is in the study of spells. He can't wait to go up and directly announce that Hema is his Ravenclaw student, but in the end he endured it and raised his glass to Hema. Beautiful wandless spells and silent spells, everyone should be quiet first. Mr. Abbott has not been sorted yet. As the scene became more and more noisy, Dumbledore also tapped the cup with a spoon, and the auditorium suddenly became quiet. "Please, Mr. Hema." Dumbledore raised ABO with a faint smile, which calmed Hema's flustered heart. Just now, he was really not pretending to be malicious. He did learn 8 or 9 spells throughout the summer, but that included the use of silent spells. Without a wand, he hadn't learned how to cast spells. He just used magic subconsciously just now, and then it was done. He found that he could do this, and he discovered it when he just fell from the air and used the spell. Speaking of branch colleges, although he also wanted to go to Witch College, but after thinking about discovering his salted fish, it seems that no college really likes it. UU reading www.uuganshu.com. Although Gryffindors are good, they feel that they are too active and do not meet my energy-saving strategy. Ravenclaw is okay, but he doesn't like to waste his brain. Hufflepuff, he didn't think he was worthy of this place of honest people. Slytherin, he didn't pursue power so much, and he was not pure blood. After thinking about it, the hat was buttoned on top of his head, and a hoarse voice sounded from his ear. "Mum, it's difficult, you feel like a student from last year, what's the name?" "Harry Potter." No, Hermione Granger, I thought that she was suitable for Gryffindor and Ravenclaw as well, but in the end she went to Gryffindor. But you are different. You are talented and brave. You are smart. You can use everything that is beneficial to advance, but you are kind to others. You have some characteristics of each college. Then where should I go? Where do you want to go? The Sorting Hat also surprisingly had the idea of asking the little wizard himself, and it could not be asserted for the first time. "I'm free." Hema also replied, he really thought so. Hearing Hema's answer, the Sorting Hat fell into a strange silence. The other little wizards and the students underneath also looked at Hema, who had been sitting there for a long time, and clenched their fists. Maybe this guy can come to Slytherin, only we Slytherin deserve to have such a talent. Wood, this kid is a genius. When you come to Gryffindor, let him try Quidditch. Following the discussion below, the Sorting Hat suddenly yelled Slytherin. Slytherin. After hearing the cry of the Sorting Hat, Hema also nodded, took off the hat, and the side door just opened, and Snape walked in with the dejected trio. Harry and the others happened to see Hema taking off his hat and walking down, but then the cheers from the Slytherin side made a few people look at Hema strangely. Hema went to Slytherin. Compared to Ron, who was not familiar with Hema, Harry hoped that the brave boy who helped him came to Gryffindor. At least I have to go to Ravenclaw or Hufflepuff like his sister, but why did I go to Slytherin? This is simply not correct. Hermione also noticed Harry's expression and patted him lightly. The choices made by the Academy hat are generally not wrong, and Slytherin is not just a bad person. Are the three of you standing here watching the show? Go back to your seats. Snape glanced at Harry, then flung his robe, stepped onto the stage, and took his seat. Harry and the three also returned to the Gryffindor seats with an unhappy expression. Oh, where did you go? Fred put a hand on Ron's shoulder. This. Ron glanced at her cold face. We didn't come into the station, and then we had to drive over by the speed car. Professor Snape happened to be caught upright, 30 minutes per person. Flying car? Ron, Dad knows he will kill you. George also gloated at Ron pouting. And Harry ignored the content of their chat, but was extremely depressed. First the elf, then couldn't get into the station, and was caught by Snape deducting points. Even Hema has been assigned to Slytherin, and his luck seems to have been not so good recently. The subsequent sorting ceremony was much faster, and it was over in a short while, and Hema was caught in the awkward chat session of being questioned. Even in his impression, the little Mr. Malfoy, who basically couldn't pull anyone, smiled at him, making him confused. What's this? Is it a new type of broom? A fat Slytherin student next to him looked at the wand suspended next to him and stretched out his hand to touch it. Carefully. What? Hema was about to remind him, but the other hand took a step quickly and grabbed it directly, and then there was a burning smell. This is my wand, it's better not to move it, it will die. Hema grabbed the wand, carried the wand on her body, and grabbed the boy's hand. The boy was also taken aback, looking at Hema's squinting eyes, a little scared, and the surrounding students looked over curiously. Starfall Grace Hema waved his hand, and a faint golden gleam surged from his arm, raising feathers composed of rays, and then spreading to the boy's arm. Under everyone's shocked eyes, the eye-catching scald was quickly healed, and the little fat man suddenly felt his body lighten, and all the pain disappeared. Is this the curse of healing? I have never seen it before. Have you seen those feathers? The Slytherin students around were all staring at Hema with wide-eyed eyes, but the other side still had no expression. Well everyone, we still have a long time to get along. Hema smiled at the students around him, revealing his unsightly smile, and they seemed to suddenly feel a breath suppressed. The senior students turned their heads involuntarily and obeyed Hema's orders. This made them a little weird. Language magic? Although Hema was a little arrogant, the surrounding students were not particularly disgusted, but for them, this is the personality of a Slytherin student. Of course, after Hema changed back to being quiet, he lay on the table and ate a piece of beef, and took a deep breath. After all, acting was too tired. Is senior sister Xiao here? Went to sleep again? In fact, Xiao went asleep again and again is a good thing for him. After all, Xiao Wenna told him that after his magic power became active, the integration efficiency of the system in her did not know why it was also higher. So in the future, Xiao Wenna may really accept this system completely. Speaking of the healing magic just now, it is actually an angel's skill. W skills, but Senior Xiao was too salty at the beginning, and the task completion degree reaches 70% to get the complete W skill effect. The half-dead can be pulled back for you, but she only completed 41% in the end, resulting in this skill can only heal some newly generated wounds. No wonder I was beaten by no-nos, this is too watery. Although Hema complained for a while, she still thanked the other party for helping him this time. She only released a small task and gave him the angel's power. The attacking salted fish circle 10 times in a row, and stay awake and walk 5 meters. Of course, there will be no such task in the future, and as the system merges, the task will become more demanding. After all, system management can't completely change the nature of the system and become the back garden of your home. Everyone has almost eaten, here I have something to say to the freshmen. Dumbledore stood up and popularized some Hogwarts rules and regulations for everyone. Although those senior grades had listened to it every year, his ears were about to become calluses. Then I wish you a good study and a good life at Hogwarts. This is not only a school, but also your home. Accompanied by a round of applause, the various colleges stood up from their seats, began to leave the seats one by one, and followed the prefect to the common room. Slytherin's dormitory is underground, and Hufflepuff is going down, while Ravenclaw is leaving the main castle and going to the Tower of Ravenclaw, and Gryffindor is going up. So compared to the Slytherin green room with lake view, Hema prefers the empty inspiration of Ravenclaw's dormitory, but he has no choice just now, so I don't blame the Sorting Hat's judgment. In fact, Slytherin is not bad, as long as he polishes the people he is not close to, and has a comfortable environment to study, and then he can go down. When you reach the 4th grade, see if you have the ability to prevent Voldemort from resurrecting. If not, leave Hogwarts in the 5th or 6th grade. UU reading www.ukansha.com. Leaving England with Hannah and Mrs. Abbott, and staying outside for a while, and when Harry wins, he can come back by himself. You said you can't win, he really didn't think about it. If Voldemort really has that ability, then there is nothing wrong with being a Death Eater. With regard to Horcruxes, pay attention to the other 6. They can be solved with Old Deng's head. In fact, it is Harry's in the final analysis. After all, the owner of the old magic wand is Harry, and Voldemort has the old magic wand, and attacked Harry without the other party knowing the basic conditions. If because of his appearance or other reasons, the plot changes, then it is easy to have problems, so it is difficult. Now, for him, the only sustenance besides escape is that senior sister Xiao can fully control the system, relying on the system and grandfather, maybe he can be just like No-Nose. We have arrived. A tall and sturdy prefect of Slytherin stood in front of a wall, put his hand on the wall, and said, "Everything comes first." With a click, the wall flashed, a stone gate appeared in everyone's field of vision, and then the prefect took the lead to let the new students go in. At the moment Hema followed the team in, a cold voice rang from above and poured directly into Hema's eardrum. "Kill! Blood kill pure!" Hema's eyes widened surprisingly, but she didn't find it when she looked up. Everyone around didn't seem to hear the voice, and was talking to herself. "What the is this?" Hiss. As the voice faded away, he felt an itchy arm. He rolled up his sleeves, and by the green oil lamp beside him, a piece of fish scale-like thing appeared on his arm.